Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the ship called Sanctuary. He looked out through the big window at the stars. His hands were shaking a little. 3 months of running from one place to another had made him tired. Behind him, in the lower parts of the ship, 237 aliens waited. They were scared and hungry. These aliens looked like walking crystals. Their bodies were clear and sparkled when light hit them, but now they were dim and sad. Their home planet was gone. Giant space bugs called devourers had eaten everything on their world. The crystal people had escaped in old ships that barely worked. Jake had been a cargo pilot before this. He moved boxes and supplies between space stations. That was a simple job. This was different. Now he carried the last survivors of an entire species. The weight of that responsibility pressed down on his chest every day. The crystal people called themselves Zapirians. Their leader was an old one named HFY. He was bigger than the others, and his crystal body had more colors in it. Sometimes Jake saw him sitting alone in the cargo bay, his body flickering with patterns that looked like tears. For 3 months they had asked for help. The big governments in space all said no. The Altarian Empire was first. They sent a message that said, "We do not help resource drains." Jake did not understand what that meant, but it sounded mean. The Vagan Confederacy was next. Their answer was worse. These beings do not fit with civilized society, they said. Jake wanted to punch whoever wrote that message. The Zephyrians were more polite than most humans he knew. The Century Union gave them hope for a while. Everyone said they were nice aliens who helped others. But they also said no. Economic concerns was their reason. Jake learned that meant they were worried about money. Smaller governments said no too. Some were afraid, others just did not care. Jake started to think that maybe the whole galaxy was full of selfish jerks. Then they heard about Earth. Earth was new to space travel. Humans had only been flying between stars for about 50 years. Most alien governments thought humans were primitive and unimportant. But when Jake sent a message asking for help, the answer came back fast. All are welcome. That was it. 3 simple words. No conditions, no demands for payment, no questions about whether the Zephyrians would be useful. Jake had to read the message 5 times before he believed it. HFY stood beside him when the translation came through. The old crystal being made a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Jake learned that meant he was crying with joy. The trip to Earth took 2 weeks. Sanctuary was not built for long trips. The engines made bad noises and the recycling system smelled funny. Jake worried they would not make it, but the Zephyrians helped fix things. Their crystal fingers could work with electronics in ways that amazed him. During the trip, Jake learned more about them. They were artists and musicians. They made beautiful things with light and sound. They had no weapons on their world and never fought wars. That was probably why the Devourers ate their planet so easily. A young Zephyrian named Kylie showed Jake how they made music. She touched different parts of her crystal body and created sounds like a whole orchestra. The music was sad but beautiful. It told the story of their lost home. Do humans make music? She asked through the translator device. Jake smiled. Yes, we do. Lots of different kinds. Will we be allowed to make music on your world? The question made Jake's chest feel tight. These People had lost everything. Now they were worried about whether they could make art. I think humans would love to hear your music, he said, as they got closer to Earth's solar system. Jake got more messages from human space control. A woman named Captain Lisa Rodriguez was in charge of something called Refugee Services Division. Her messages were warm and helpful. She gave him directions to Luna Station, which was a big space station near Earth's moon. We have prepared temporary homes for your passengers, one message said. Our medical team is ready to help anyone who needs care. Do the Zephyrians have any special needs we should know about? Jake had never seen anything like this before. Usually space stations asked how much you could pay first, then they asked what you needed. The last day of the trip was the hardest. The sanctuary's engine started making really bad noises. Jake was not sure they would make it to Luna Station. But the Zephyrians worked together there, crystal bodies glowing as they fixed systems that Jake did not even understand. Why are you helping me? Jake asked. Vexai, I mean, you are the ones who need help. The old crystal being flickered with patterns that the translator said meant amusement. Because you helped us first, he said. When no one else would listen, you came. Now we help you reach the place that will help us all. When Earth appeared in the window, Jake felt something he had not felt in months. Hope. The planet looked blue and green and beautiful. White clouds swirled over the continents. He had seen pictures before, but seeing it in person was different. The Zephyrians crowded around the windows in the cargo bay. Their crystal bodies began to glow brighter as they saw their new home. Some of them made wind chime sounds, others created light patterns that danced across the walls. It is beautiful, Vexai said, standing beside Jake. We had heard that human worlds were ugly, covered with factories and pollution. Jake laughed. Humans can be messy sometimes, but we are trying to do better. Luna Station was huge. Jake had seen big space stations before, but this one looked different. It was built in a wheel shape that spun slowly. Green growing areas were visible through clear sections. It looked alive and welcoming. Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the radio. Sanctuary, this is Luna Control. Welcome to the Sol System. We have Docking Base 7 ready for you. Medical teams are standing by. Jake's voice was rough when he answered. Luna Control, this is Commander Morrison. Thank you. We thank you. No thanks needed, Commander. This is what neighbors do. As they docked, Jake watched through the windows. Human workers in spacesuits were already preparing equipment to help unload the Zephyrians safely. Medical personnel waited with devices Jake did not recognize, probably built specially for crystal-based life forms. Captain Rodriguez met them at the airlock. She was a small woman with brown skin and kind eyes. She wore a blue uniform with patches showing Earth and Luna Station. When she saw the first Syrians coming through the airlock, she smiled. Welcome home, she said through the translator. Vexahai's crystal body blazed with light patterns. The translator had trouble keeping up with all the emotions he was expressing. Your species asked for nothing in return, he finally managed to say. Raj's smile got bigger. We know what it is like to be displaced. Earth has experience with refugees. We have been helping our own people find new homes for thousands of years. Jake watched as human workers carefully helped elderly Zephyrians who had trouble moving, human. Children pressed against the observation windows, waving at the young crystal. Beings, some humans held signs with words in the Zephyrian language. The messages said things like, "Welcome, friends, and glad you are here." For the first time in 3 months, Jake felt like crying, but these were good tears. Galaxy had turned them away, but Earth opened its doors. And from the way, Captain Rodriguez was already talking about permanent settlements in integration programs. Jake knew this was just the beginning of something bigger than anyone imagined. 2 weeks after the Zephyrians arrived at Luna Station, something unexpected happened. Another ship appeared at the edge of the solar system. This one was bigger and looked like it was made of living metal. It moved in a strange way, like it was swimming through space. Instead of flying, Dr. Henry Kim was eating breakfast in his small office. When the alert came through, he was Earth's new director of xenological integration. That was a fancy name for someone who helped alien refugees fit into human society. He never expected to have this job, but then again, nobody expected aliens to start showing up, asking for help. "Dr. Kim, we have another refugee ship," said Lieutenant Danny Walsh over the communication system. Danny worked at Mars Transit Station, which watched for ships coming into the solar system. "They are asking for permission to approach Earth." Henry put down his coffee cup. "What species?" "They call themselves gastropods. The ship design matches reports from the Melanic clouds, sir. According to the database, these are the ones who were enslaved by the mining corporations." Henry knew about the gastropods. They looked like giant slugs, but were very smart. Big companies had been using them as workers in dangerous mines for hundreds of years. The work killed many of them, but nobody cared because they were just animals. According to the corporate reports, grant them approach clearance, Henry said, and get Amy Fletcher down here. We will need her translation skills. Amy Fletcher was the best language expert on Luna Station. She could learn new alien languages faster than anyone Henry had ever met. She was also good at making scared refugees feel safe. When Amy arrived, she looked tired. She had been working day and night to help the Zephyrians learn human languages and to teach humans how to understand crystal light communication. "Another species?" she asked, sitting down in the chair across from Henry's desk. "Gastropods escaped slaves from the mining companies." Amy's face got hard. "Those poor beings. I read the reports about what the companies did to them, keeping them in tiny spaces, forcing them to work until they died, treating them like machines instead of people." The gastropod ship took 3 days to reach Luna Station. When it docked, Henry and Amy were waiting with medical teams and food supplies. The airlock opened and the first gastropod came through. Henry tried not to stare. The being was about as tall as a human, but shaped like a giant slug. Its skin was brown and green, with patterns that seemed to move. It had 4 arms and a head with big sad eyes. When it moved, it left a wet trail behind it. "I am Healer Slime who tends," the being said through a translation device. "I speak for my people. We ask for sanctuary. We have nowhere else to go." Amy stepped forward. "I am Amy Fletcher. This is Dr. Henry Kim. We are here to help. How many of your people are on the ship?" 43 adults, 12 young ones. "We escaped when the mining station was destroyed by worker rebellion. We have been traveling for many months. Henry saw that the gastropod's skin was scarred in many places. Some scars looked fresh. Are any of your people hurt? All of us are hurt, Slime Houghton said simply. Some embody all in spirit. The companies treated us badly. For a very long time, the medical team worked carefully to help the gastropods. The slug-like beings needed different things than humans or Zapirians. They needed more water and special food, but the human doctors learned quickly, and soon they had the refugees comfortable in temporary housing. News of the gastropods spread through the refugee networks that existed in the dark corners of the galaxy. These were secret communication channels that desperate people used to share information about safe places and dangerous areas. Within a month, more ships came. A small, fast ship brought 12 luminari. These beings were made of pure energy and looked like colored light in the shape of people. They had been hunted across the galaxy because other species wanted to capture them and use their energy to power machines. We are the last of our kind who are still freed, their leader told Henry through a special translator that worked with energy beings. All others have been caught and put into power cores. We heard that humans do not steal people to use as batteries. Henry felt sick when he heard this. No, we do not do that. That is slavery and murder. You're safe here, the Illuminati cried. When they heard this, when energy beings cry, they make beautiful colors that fill the air like rainbows. A week later, a damaged ship limped into the solar system. It carried 37 hive-touched insect-like beings who had been thrown out of their own collective mind for thinking independently. In most hive species, individual thoughts were considered a mental illness. We are broken there, spokesperson said. Her name was Click Whistle Hope, and she looked like a giant ant that walked on her back legs. Our hive mind rejected us because we asked questions. We think for ourselves. This makes us outcasts. Carlos Mendes, the engineer who designed living spaces for different species, worked with Click Whistle Hope to build areas where the hive touch could live. Thinking for yourself is not broken, he told her. It is what makes you special. Click Whistle Hope's compound eyes seemed to shine when she heard this. Humans think individual thoughts are good. We think they are wonderful, Carlos said. Each new group brought stories of rejection and cruelty from the established galactic powers. The energy beings had been hunted like animals. The slug people had been worked to death in mines. The insect people had been cast out for being different, but they also brought gifts. The gastropods knew secrets about biotechnology that amazed human scientists. They could grow living machines that healed themselves when damaged. Dr. Sarah Martinez, head of medical research, worked with Healer Slime, who tends to develop new treatments for diseases that humans had never been able to cure. The luminary shared knowledge about energy that made human power systems look primitive. Chief Engineer Bob Thompson learned how to build generators that could power entire cities using just sunlight and the natural energy fields around planets. The hive touched brought tactical thinking skills that had been developed over millions of years of collective evolution, but now freed from the hive mind. They could use those skills in creative new ways. General Patricia Hayes, head of Earth's Small Defense Force, was amazed at the battle strategies that Click Whistle Hope could Develop, your people were fools to throw you away, Patricia told the insect being during one of their planning sessions. You think in ways that could revolutionize military science. Is military science good? Click. Whistle. Hope asked, worried. Hive said, thinking about war too much was dangerous. Patricia smiled. When it is used to protect innocent people, yes, it is good. As more refugees arrived, Luna station became crowded. Henry worked 18 hours a day trying to find places for everyone to live and work. The human government provided money and supplies, but resources were getting tight. Some humans began to complain. Representatives from Earth's various countries held meetings about the refugee problem. News programs showed images of crowded stations and asked whether Earth was taking on too much. But for every human who complained, there were 10 others who helped. Families opened their homes to refugee families. Schools created programs to teach alien children alongside human children. Companies hired refugees and learned to use their unique skills. Amy Fletcher started a cultural exchange program. Saphirian crystal music concerts were held in human cities. Gastropod biotechnology was used to heal Earth's damaged environments. Luminary energy beings help power clean energy projects. Hive touched individuals, worked with human scientists to solve complex problems. The galaxy watched this with growing concern. The Galactic Council held emergency meetings about the human situation. Trade representatives from major powers visited Earth and saw refugees working alongside humans as equals. This is setting a dangerous precedent, the Altarian ambassador told President Maria Santos during an official visit. If all species start accepting refugees, it will destabilize the economy. President Santos looked at him calmly. Maybe the economy needs to be destabilized. Maybe a system that throws away people like garbage is not worth protecting. The ambassador's face turned purple, which was how Alarians showed anger. You do not understand the complexity of galactic politics. I understand that beings are dying while politicians talk about complexity. Santos replied. That night, Henry received a priority message on his communication device. It was from Lieutenant Walsh at Mars Transit Station. Dr. Kim, we have 12 more ships approaching, different species, all refugees, and sir, long-range sensors are picking up something else. Looks like a Centaur Union battle fleet heading our way. They will be here in 6 days. Henry set down his device and looked out the window of his office. Below him, Zapirian children played with human children in the station's park. Gastropod families tended gardens that grew food for everyone. Luminary beings helped repair equipment damaged by overuse. Earth had opened its doors to those the galaxy had thrown away. Now it looked like the galaxy was coming to make them close those doors. Henry picked up his communication device and called President Santos. Madame President, we need to talk. President Maria Santos stood in the emergency meeting room deep inside Luna Station. The walls were covered with screens showing news from across the galaxy. Most of the news was not good. Trade routes to Earth were being blocked. Human cargo ships were being stopped and searched by alien military patrols. Some human merchants had been arrested on made-up charges. The Galactic Council had voted to place economic sanctions on Earth, that meant they would not trade with humans anymore. They said Earth was destabilizing regional security by accepting refugees that other governments had rejected. Admiral Frank Peterson sat across the table from the president. He was in charge of Earth's space navy, which was very small compared to the big alien fleets. His face looked worried and tired. 3 more of our cargo ships were detained this week, he reported. The Altarians claimed they were carrying illegal weapons. They were not. The ships were full of food and medical supplies for the outer colonies. Senator Rachel Williams looked up from her data pad. She had been reading reports from human settlements throughout the solar system. Harassment is getting worse. Yesterday, a vegan patrol ship fired warning shots at a human transport near Jupiter. They said the ship was acting suspiciously. Dr. Henry Kim spoke up from his seat. Near the back of the room, the refugee species are starting to notice what is happening. They feel guilty. Some of them want to leave so that Earth will not be punished for helping them. President Santos felt a heavy weight in her chest. She had known this would be hard, but she had not expected the galaxy to react so strongly. Earth was just trying to help people who had nowhere else to go. How many refugees are we housing now? She asked. 467 individuals from 12 different species. Henry answered. More ships arrive every week. Word is spreading through the underground networks that Earth is a safe place. The door to the meeting room opened and Captain Lisa Rodriguez walked in. She looked upset about something. Madame President, I just received a message from the Century Union. They are demanding that we meet with their ambassador. What do they want to discuss? Lisa handed her a data pad with the official message. They want us to expel all refugees within 30 days. If we refuse, they say they will take appropriate military action to protect galactic stability. The room went quiet. Everyone knew what that meant. The Centauri Union had one of the strongest space fleets in the galaxy. Earth's small navy would not stand a chance against them in a real fight. Senator Williams broke the silence. Maybe we should consider their demands. I do not want to see Earth destroyed over this. No, the voice came from the doorway. Elder Vexy stood there, his crystal body dim with sadness. Behind him were other refugee leaders. Healer Slime, who tends from the gastropods, Illuminari energy being, whose name translated to light, who hopes. Click whistle. Hope from the hive touched. President Santos stood up. Elder Vexi, this is a closed meeting. We know, the crystal being said. We came to say that we will leave. We do not want Earth to suffer because of us. Other refugee leaders nodded in agreement. Healer Slime, who 10 spoke through his translator. Humans have given us hope when all others turned away. We will not let that kindness be punished. President Santos felt something hot and angry rise up in her chest. Sit down, all of you. The refugees looked surprised but took seats around the table. President Santos walked to the main screen and switched it to show images from around Luna Station. Zaffiran children playing with human children. Gastropod biotechnology healing human patients in the medical center. Luminary beings working with human engineers to build better power systems. Hive-touched individuals teaching human students new ways to solve problems. Look at this, she said, pointing at the screens. This is not just charity. This is not just us Helping you, this is us building something new together. She switched to economic reports, Zephyrian computing. Technology has made our information systems 10 times faster, gastropod. Biotechnology is healing diseases we thought were impossible to cure. Luminary energy systems have made our power grid completely clean and renewable. Hive-touch tactical thinking has helped us solve problems from city planning to scientific research. Admiral Peterson nodded. Our defense capabilities have improved more in the last 6 months than in the previous 10 years thanks to refugee knowledge and skills. Senator Williams looked at the data with surprise. I did not realize the economic benefits were so significant. That is because most people only see the costs. President Santos said they see crowded stations and stretched resources. They do not see the innovations and improvements that come from having different kinds of minds working together. She turned back to the refugee leaders. You are not burdens, you are partners, and partners do not abandon each other when things get hard. Elder Vexai's crystal body began to glow brighter. But your species will be hurt because of us. Our species will be stronger because of you. President Santos replied. The question is not whether we should send you away. The question is how we stand together against those who want to break us apart. Dr. Kim stood up and walked to another screen. He showed images of refugee camps on the edges of civilized space, thousands of beings living in horrible conditions, waiting for someone to accept them. While we have been talking, 17 more species have been driven from their homes. The devourer swarms are spreading. 3 more worlds have been consumed. The galactic governments are turning away everyone. He switched to another image. It showed a massive refugee fleet heading toward Earth. They are all coming here. In 2 months, we will have over 2,000 refugees from more than 30 species. Senator Williams looked pale. Can we handle that many? Not with our current resources, Henry admitted, but if we work together, if we use everyone's skills and knowledge, we might be able to do something that has never been done before. What is that? Admiral Peterson asked. President Santos smiled. For the first time in days, we build a truly multicultural civilization, not just humans helping aliens, but all species working as equals to create something better than any of us could build alone. Light who hopes, the luminary energy being pulsed with colors that meant excitement. This is possible. I do not know, President Santos said honestly. It has never been tried before, but I know that hiding from bullies never works. The only way to deal with people who want to hurt you for doing the right thing is to keep doing the right thing and get strong enough to protect yourself. Click whistle. Hope made the chittering sound. That was how her people laughed. Hivemind always said individual thinking was dangerous because it leads to unpredictable actions. Maybe that is exactly what we need. Admiral Peterson leaned forward. If we are going to do this, we need to prepare for war. The Centaur Union will not accept our refusal to expel the refugees. Then we make them understand that we are serious, President Santos said. She turned to address everyone in the room. Dr. Kim, I want you to coordinate with all refugee species. Find out what each group can contribute to our defense and our economy. Senator Williams, I need you to talk to the colonies. We will need every human settlement to accept refugees and integrate them into their communities. She looked at Admiral Peterson. Frank, I want you to work with the refugee leaders to plan our defense, use every advantage we have. Finally, she addressed the refugees directly. I know you came here looking for safety, not for another war, but sometimes the only way to find peace is to stand up to those who would destroy it. Will you stand with us? Elder Vexhi's crystal body blazed with light. We stand with those who stood with us. Healer Slime, who tends left a trail of determined slime as he moved closer to the table. Gastropods know much about surviving in difficult places. We will help. Light, who hopes filled the room with warm, brave colors. Energy beings have been hunted long enough, time to fight back. Click whistle. Hope's antenna twitched. With tactical thinking, individual minds working together can create strategies that no collective mind could imagine. President Santos looked around the room at humans and aliens sitting together, planning their shared future. Outside, the Centauri Union fleet was getting closer every day. The galactic powers were angry and threatening. Economic sanctions were hurting human trade, but inside this room, something new was being born, not just a refuge for the desperate, but a union of different peoples choosing to build something better together. Then let us get to work, she said. We have 30 days to show the galaxy what cooperation can accomplish. Captain Tony Rodriguez floated in zero gravity inside the command center of the Earth ship Hope's Dawn. Around him, beings from 7 different species worked at control stations that had been modified for their unique needs. Zephyrian navigator Keithman used her crystal fingers to calculate hyperspace jump coordinates with impossible speed. A Hive-Touch tactical officer named Buzz Think Fast analyzed enemy fleet movements on multiple screens at once. 30 days had passed since the Century Union's ultimatum. Earth had not expelled the refugees. Instead, something amazing had happened. The different species had worked together in ways that surprised everyone, including themselves. Dr. Sophie Chen had been put in charge of coordinating the defense effort. She was a military strategist who had studied alien warfare for years, but she had never worked directly with aliens before. Now her command center looked like a rainbow of different life forms. Captain Rodriguez, the Centauri fleet, has entered the outer solar system, reported Lieutenant Sam Parker from the sensor station. He was working alongside a gastropod named Slime who sees far, whose biological sensors could detect ships that human equipment missed. Tony looked at the main display screen. 57 Century Union warships were approaching. In perfect formation, their ships were sleek and silver, built for speed and firepower. Earth's defense fleet had only 23 ships, most of them converted cargo vessels with weapons hastily attached. They probably expect us to surrender when we see how outnumbered we are, Tony said to his mixed species crew. Buzz Think Fast clicked her mandibles together in what Tony had learned was amusement. Centauri military doctrine relies on intimidation and overwhelming force. They have never fought an enemy that uses unpredictable tactics. That was exactly what Dr. Chen had been counting on. For 30 days, refugees and humans had worked together to prepare defenses that no galactic military had ever seen before. The Void Walkers had been the biggest surprise. Their ship had arrived just 2 weeks earlier carrying only 8 survivors of their nearly extinct species. These beings could phase through solid matter, making them invisible to most sensors. Other species feared them and called them monsters, but Earth had welcomed them like all the others, now void. Walker Scout drift through stars, materialized beside Tony's command chair. The shadow-like beings form flickered between solid and translucent. Century ships have weak spots in their shield generators, drift through stars. Reported, my people have marked the locations for your targeting systems. Tony nodded his thanks. The Void Walkers had spent the last week phasing through the approaching enemy ships, gathering intelligence that would have been impossible to get any other way. On the main screen, the Centauri fleet commander was requesting to speak with Earth's leaders. Tony opened the communication channel. Admiral Korak appeared on the screen. He was tall and blue-skinned with 4 arms, wearing the elaborate uniform of the Centauri Union Navy. His face showed the confidence of someone who had never lost a battle. I'm Admiral Korak of the Centauri Union Defense Force. You have ignored our lawful demands to expel the criminal refugees harbored in this system. Surrender immediately and we will show mercy to the human population. President Santos's voice came through from Luna Station, where she was coordinating the civilian evacuation. Admiral, the only criminals I see are those who would punish people for showing compassion to the desperate. Korfak's expression hardened. You have brought this upon yourselves. All ships, begin the attack. The Century fleet broke formation and accelerated toward Earth's defensive positions. Tony had expected this moment, but his heart still pounded as he gave his first orders. All ships implement plan harmony. Remember, we are not just defending Earth, we are defending the idea that different people can build something better together. What happened next was unlike any space battle. Galactic history. The Zephyrin navigators had calculated jump coordinates that allowed Earth ships to appear exactly where the enemy did not expect them. Human fighters piloted by refugees and humans together struck from angles that confused the Century targeting systems, but the real surprise came from the defensive platforms that had been built around Earth and Luna. These platforms were powered by Luminari, energy beings who had volunteered to become living power sources for the defense grid. Their energy created shields that absorbed the Centauri weapons fire and turned it into more power for Earth systems. Admiral, thou Korfak's confident expression began to change as his weapons failed to damage the human defenses. What kind of shield technology is this? He demanded over the open communication channel. The kind that comes from people working together instead of conquering each other. President Santos replied. The battle turned when the gastropod biotechnology came into play. Healer slime mutants had worked with human engineers to develop living weapons that could repair themselves and adapt to enemy tactics. When Centauri missiles struck Earth ships, the biohull plating absorbed the damage and healed within seconds. Click Whistle Hope coordinated the tactical response from her position on Luna Station. Her individual thinking, combined with millions of years of hive mind tactical evolution, created battle strategies that the Century fleet could not predict or counter. Enemy ships are attempting to flank our left formation, she reported to all Earth commanders. Simultaneously, recommend Zapirian ships Execute crystal maze maneuver while human fighters perform distraction swarm. Attack pattern Tony had never heard of a crystal maze maneuver before, but he trusted Click Whistle Hop's tactical brilliance. The Zaffiran ship suddenly began moving in complex patterns that looked random but created a maze of crystalline energy fields. Century ships that tried to fly through the maze found their instruments failing and their hulls being cut by energy that behaved unlike anything they had encountered. Meanwhile, human fighters swarmed around the larger Centauri warships like angry bees. The human pilots had learned high-voltage coordination techniques that allowed them to move as one unit while still thinking independently. Admiral Korek found himself fighting an enemy that should not have existed. His ships were more advanced and his crews were more experienced, but Earth's forces fought with a unity and creativity that his military training had not prepared him for. "This is impossible," he said to his tactical officer. "Their technology should not be this advanced. Our intelligence report said humans were primitive." "Sir, I think they are using refugee technologies in combination with their own systems," the tactical officer replied. "It is creating effects we have never seen before." The turning point came when the Void Walkers launched their part of the plan. Drift through stars and his 7 companions phased through the hulls of the largest Century ships and began sabotaging critical systems from the inside. The enemy ships found their weapons failing, their engines shutting down and their communications cutting out, but the Void Walkers were careful. They disabled the ships without killing the crews, following human rules about protecting prisoners and minimizing casualties. Within 4 hours, the mighty Centauri fleet was either disabled or retreating. Admiral Korek's flagship was dead in space, its engines offline and its weapons system shut down. Tony opened a communication channel to the disabled flagship. "Admiral Korech, this is Captain Rodriguez. Do you surrender?" The alien admiral's forearms were shaking with rage and disbelief. How did primitive species defeat the Century Union Navy? "We did not do it alone," Tony replied. "We had help from friends. The same friends you wanted us to throw away." Dr. Chen's voice came through the fleet communication system. "All ships, begin rescue operations. Any Centauri crew members who need medical attention will be taken to our medical facilities. Anyone who wants to return home will be given safe passage." Admiral Corfax's expression changed to confusion. "You are offering to help us. We just tried to destroy you." President Santos's voice joined the conversation from Luna Station. "Admiral, we believe that people can change. We believe that enemies can become friends. Would you like to see what we have built here?" Over the next several days, something unprecedented happened. Century crew members who had come to attack Earth instead found themselves touring Luna Station and seeing humans and refugees working together as equals. They saw Zephyrian children playing with human children. They saw gastropod healers treating injured Centauri soldiers with the same care they gave to humans. Many of the Centauri officers had never seen different species cooperating peacefully. In their part of the galaxy, it was always about one group dominating another. Admiral Korech stood in the main observation deck of Luna Station, looking out at Earth through the transparent aluminum windows. Beside him, Elder Vexai's crystal body glowed With peaceful patterns, I do not understand, the admiral said. Why do you help those who try to harm you, elder? Vexai's translation came through clearly, because showing mercy to enemies is how enemies become friends. Because building peace is harder than making war, but the results last longer. Admiral Korek was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke to President Santos, who was standing nearby. The Century Union Council will want to know how you defeated us so easily. 5 years had passed since the battle with the Century Union Fleet. President Maria Santos stood in the newly built Galactic Assembly Hall on Luna Station, looking out at a sight that would have been impossible to imagine when the first Zahirian refugees arrived. The great hall was filled with beings from over 100 different species. Some sat in chairs designed for human-like bodies. Others floated in energy containment fields. A few rested in pools of liquid that kept their skin moist. The void walkers flickered in and out of visibility in a special section designed just for them. This was the first meeting of the Sol System Alliance. Council and representatives had come from across the galaxy to see what Earth had built. President Santos wore a simple blue dress with patches showing the symbols of all the refugee species that now called the solar system home. She had been re-elected twice since the refugee crisis began, each time by larger margins as humans saw the benefits of their multicultural society. 5 years ago, the galaxy told our friends they had nowhere to go. Santos began, her words being translated into dozens of languages and communication methods. Simultaneously, they were called unwanted, unnecessary, and dangerous. But we knew better. In the front row, Elder Vexai sat with his crystal body glowing brighter than it had since the destruction of his home world. Beside him, the Zephyrian younglings who had been born in the Sol System shined even more brilliantly. They had never known fear or rejection, only acceptance and belonging. Healer Slime, who tends, had brought several of his children, young gastropods who had grown up learning human medicine alongside their own biotechnology. They were already developing new treatments that combined the best of both approaches. Click. Whistle Hope now served as Earth's chief military strategist. Her individual thinking, freed from the constraints of hive mind conformity, had revolutionized defense tactics throughout human space. She chittered softly as President Santos spoke, which was her way of showing approval. Today, we are not refugees and natives, Santos continued. We are citizens of something new, a civilization built on the idea that difference makes us stronger, not weaker. The changes had been remarkable. Luna Station had grown into a city of 2 million beings from 47 different species. Mars had been transformed by gastropod biotechnology into a green world with breathable air and flowing rivers. The asteroid belt buzzed with mining operations run cooperatively by humans and rock-eating, silicon-based beings called crunchers who had arrived 3 years earlier. But the most amazing changes were in the people themselves. Dr. Amy Fletcher, now head of the Interspecies Communication Institute, had developed a universal translation system that worked in real time for any known language. Children growing up in the Sol System often spoke 3 or 4 different alien languages fluently. Engineer Carlos Mendes had learned to build cities that accommodated every type of being imaginable. His latest Project was an underwater city on Europa where aquatic refugees could live alongside human marine biologists. The economy had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Saphirian computing technology had made human information systems the most advanced in the galaxy. Gastropod biotechnology had eliminated most diseases and made aging optional for humans who wanted to live longer. Luminary energy systems had made the entire solar system completely clean and renewable. More importantly, the mixing of different ideas and ways of thinking had led to innovations that no single species could have achieved alone. Hive touched working with human psychologists had developed new ways to treat mental illness that helped both individual and collective minds. The Void Walkers had taught human scientists how to manipulate matter at the quantum level, leading to breakthroughs in physics that revolutionized space travel. But President Santos knew that not everyone in the galaxy was happy about Earth's success. We know that some see our alliance as a threat, she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the Great Hall. They fear that if people see different species working together as equals, it will challenge the old ways of thinking. She was right to be concerned. In the 5 years since Earth's victory over the Century Fleet, the established galactic powers had watched nervously as more and more refugee fleets headed toward the Sol system. The old order was being challenged by a new model of civilization. Some powers had tried economic warfare, cutting off trade with Earth and its allies, but this had backfired when other species saw Earth's prosperity and began demanding similar reforms in their own governments. The draconian hegemony, longtime rivals of the Centauri Union, had been the first to break ranks. They sent an ambassador to Earth offering full diplomatic recognition and trade agreements. Ambassador Susan was a large reptilian being with green scales and intelligent yellow eyes. She had arrived on Earth expecting to find chaos and weakness. Instead, she found order and strength unlike anything she had seen. Your species has accomplished something remarkable, she told President Santos during their first meeting. Draconian hegemony would like to learn from your methods. Other species followed. The Silicon Collective, made up of rock-based life forms, offered mining partnerships that would benefit both sides. The Aquatic Federation wanted to establish underwater cities on human ocean worlds. Even some members of the Galactic Council began to change their positions. The Altarian Empire, which had been one of the most vocal opponents of Earth's refugee policies, quietly began accepting small numbers of refugees themselves after seeing the economic benefits Earth was gaining. But the real change came from the bottom up. Ordinary beings throughout the galaxy heard stories about the Sol System Alliance and began demanding that their own governments adopt similar policies of inclusion and cooperation. On 17 different worlds, protest movements sprang up calling for the Earth way of treating refugees and minorities. Some of these protests led to government changes, others led to new political parties that promised to end discrimination and welcome diversity. President Santos smiled as she continued her speech to the assembly. But the greatest gift we have received is not technology or prosperity. It is the knowledge that cooperation is stronger than conquest, that building bridges is more powerful than building walls. She gestured to the viewing area where a Special section had been built for visitors, hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat watching the proceedings. Some were diplomats from major powers. Others were refugees hoping to find sanctuary in the Sol system. Still, others were journalists and scholars who wanted to study Earth's unique approach to civilization. Among the visitors sat Admiral Korek, the former century military commander, who had tried to destroy Earth 5 years earlier. He now served as an unofficial ambassador from reform movements within the Center Union. His presence at the assembly was symbolic of how much things had changed. Admiral President Santos said, addressing him directly, "Would you like to share your thoughts with the assembly?" Korek stood up his forearms, moving in the century gesture of respect. 5 years ago I came here to force you to abandon your principles. I believe that order required conformity, and that peace required domination. His voice was steady and clear as it was translated for all to hear. I was wrong. I have spent these years studying your methods, and I now understand that true strength comes not from forcing others to be like you, but from learning how to work together despite your differences. He paused and looked around the hall at the incredible diversity of beings assembled there. The Century Union is beginning to change. We are accepting our first refugees next month. We are learning to build cooperation instead of conquest. The hall filled with sounds of approval from dozens of different species. Sephrons chimed like crystal bells. Gastropods made wet slapping sounds with their tentacles. Luminary beings pulsed with warm colors. Even the usually silent void walkers flickered in and out of visibility more rapidly than usual, which was their way of showing excitement. Elder Vexi rose from his seat, his ancient crystal form blazing with patterns of joy and gratitude. When my people first came to the system, we were the last of our kind, broken and afraid. Now look around this hall. Dozens of species that were once homeless now have homes. Hundreds of cultures that were once dying are now thriving. His light patterns grew more complex as his emotions deepened. But more than that, we have all become something new, not Zephyrian or human or gastropod, but citizens of a civilization that proves different. Peoples can build wonders together. President Santos felt tears in her eyes as she looked around the assembly hall. Children from a dozen different species played together in the visitor areas, speaking a mixture of languages that somehow all made sense together. Scientists and artists from across the galaxy shared ideas that would have been impossible in the old system of isolated competing civilizations. The galaxy turned you away, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. But Earth opened its doors, and in opening our doors we all discovered that we could build something better than any of us had imagined alone. She raised her hand, the universal gesture of greeting that had been developed by the Interspecies Communication Institute. Every being in the hall, regardless of their species or origin,